Hello, Andrew here. Welcome to the first lecture, an introductory lecture into the module Designing Digital Content in Youth Work. For the purposes of this, I'm just going to give a rundown of the goals of this particular module and what we can hope to expect in each of the lectures. It's going to be mostly, driven by practical work and, just certain sort of objectives set or tool kits that can be delivered within the week in youth centres or whatever respective environments you're working with young people in, and to help enhance that really. So there'll be a couple of levels to that end, which I'll pick away at once we go through the description of what each module is going to be. I have it right here. Well, we just go through the goals first, and then I'll step through it in one by one in terms of the lectures. So the goal of this will be to assist you in designing and creating digital content using a selection of digital media technologies. What we'll find really quickly is how interrelated a lot of them are. So if we look at things that would seem quite separate, such as image-based technologies like photos or editing and manipulating a photo or making a poster or using typography or graphic design, and then we look at like video editing, and also say audio editing, audio production, any of these types of things. As if we're when we're looking at still images, video content, and audio, what we'll find out very quickly is there's a massive crossover between those three seemingly different things, and the objective of this will be to bring all those together to kind of look at the specific technologies and softwares and applications that are available for working with image manipulation, video manipulation, and audio manipulation, and see very quickly how they can interrelate really or overlap. So that's one kind of key thing of it. All this is leading towards the development of strategies to integrate these technologies into youth work practice. So a big part of that will be very quickly just giving you the confidence and the wherewithal to kind of know how to answer questions and to take any sort of pressure of, off that it seems like you have to learn an enormous amount before you even begin. That's just a misconception by now, really, where there's any number of strategies that can be applied to learning here, mostly doing it on the fly, really, where you're actually learning by doing. And that's something which I think does correlate with youth work in a number of ways, where it allows you to be a bit more resilient and intuitive in a youth work informal education environment, where you can adapt to the wants and needs of what young people might particularly want. So we look at that really just to see how to kind of pull that together. Then we look to demonstrate communication and presentation skills in the presentation of ideas and work. Something as a youth worker or a project leader is a vital skill. We just want to bring that into the digital domain, really, and just to have, be it in terms of planning, preparation, or just project management there, all those elements that would be used in, best practice youth work now being applied to digital project-based work. To maintain a coherently structured and designed inquiry-orientated professional portfolio. So we're just going to, feeding into the broader sort of nature of the project, we're building up a community of practice for youth workers. It will start with your own sort of endeavours, really. So in a practical sense, we'll be looking at how to, structure folders, store the files, anything that is relevant or necessary to any particular digital project. And all that will do is allow you to become more sort of sophisticated or advanced in the type of work you're doing. But the principles are all pretty basic and quite similar across those different disciplines. And then the last one, really, which should be part of the ongoing week by week lectures, of you being able to conceive, trial, plan, and design digital media resources in collaboration with peers and within the youth work environment. So we just want to turn this into a really sort of a healthy kind of exchange of work and ideas, and just so everything's been done with confidence and then being met with the best practice of how to deliver these types of technologies and the different digital media resources in a youth centre, in a youth environment, really. So I just want to give a breakdown of each lecture and what we can expect to do then. as I said, it'll be mostly on the practical side of it, but there is the other side of just be project management, best practice of it, evidence-based youth work practice, media literacy, critical analysis. There's these things which are, youth workers would do in different sort of environments of like challenging young people or their perceptions around things. So what it'll happen from, like, say, the third lecture on, it'll be split somewhat, and you can see that where if we look at that third lecture, project design in a youth work setting, stroke image manipulation, they will essentially be two separate things. One will be the project design in the youth work setting, which is slightly broader, and the image manipulation will be more of a practical end of it. In that case, just building a poster would be one example of that. So I'll just go through these one by one. We'll just go through these one by one, and we'll see where we get from there. So this lecture is just going to be the introduction really to that. At the end of it, there will be one sort of task really, and that'll be one other part of it which will tie into the practical of just having a specific task that needs to be achieved. I'd expect that to take no longer than 15 minutes of your time really, and I will be doing the same thing in the lecture, so you should have a direct reference for that. The only difference really is, or potential difference, I'm working from a Mac computer, so there might be just the odd instance where something is very specific to a Mac. Where that is the case, I will explain or have a link to how to do the same thing in a PC, but essentially most of the software and the packages we'll be using will either be in applications, so it'll be something in Google Chrome or in a web browser, or it'll be some freeware software which works across Mac, PC, Linux, whatever platform or whatever computer you're actually using. So I don't anticipate a massive discrepancy to occur of losing your orientation or your bearings in relation to what I'm showing in the lecture demonstrations and what you're able to access in your version of software or the web browser. So the next lecture, we're just going to get that started. That'll probably be the next one. Will probably be the most theoretical in terms of just to kind of give you a firm understanding of things you probably already know about different sort of terminologies and descriptions of what is software, what is hardware, what an app is, how it works, different sorts of terminologies around that. And then we look at something a bit more specific about file formats and which file formats would relate to which type of technology, be it an MP3 for a sound file or a WAV file, an AIFF file, all audio files, or a JPEG, or a PNG and a GIF, these sorts of suffixes at the end of a file format, and just what the differences between them are really, because they have a lot of similarities, and they're files that everybody uses by now. But we'll just have a quick sort of look across the board to see what each one of these actually does and the relative merits of using one over another at any one time. Again, overall, it'll just be a case of giving you that sort of. The objective is to give you the confidence that you understand what you're seeing there, so there's no overloading of being burdened by what sort of particular file it is. As I said, most people use these things already and we're just going to look at it a little bit closer than you normally would when you do engage with this in your everyday use of the internet or the web. So and again, that we just look at the differences and the similarities between those digital files and how they cross over between image, video, and audio. Again, because again, this is where it begins. At the root of the technology, these files are all essentially interrelated in some regard, or can be. Just to look at that really, just to see how we can kind of, how things can work across different software technologies or different file formats. So then the next one will be the project design in a youth work setting, stroke image manipulation. Within that, we'll look at things like the orientation interface and tools. Again, just much like the file formats from earlier, so you're not getting burdened or overloaded. You can see there's actually a really simple shorthand to how most apps are laid out. If we look at it, it begins in the top left-hand corner and the name of the app is there. And then beside it, you can have something like the file, then edit, view. Like there's a similarity across the board of these, and we just want to kind of orientate you around that sort of side of an interface, really. Again, for some people it's going to be really, really basic, and for others it might just kind of fill in a few missing gaps and stuff you already do and use already. So we look at that. Yeah, app layouts, tools and terminology similarities. We'll look at that again in more specific sort of cases if needs be. And the objective will be to, in terms of the image manipulation, then we'll have an objective of downloading or using getting an app that is working on your machine for the image manipulation. And we look at different versions of the software there, again, just to show you those similarities across the different apps that are available for image manipulation. But I'll recommend one. We'll all use that. I'll have tools that can be used, be it images or anything, to just kind of we'll start making a poster essentially, and that will be something specific to your youth work and promoting a youth media project in your specific youth work environment. So that'll be the task of that. And again, like I said, it should be something that is quite practical next to work you're already doing. So the reason, I suppose, we're going to look at a few things that way, because it's good to give you as much information of what you can and should be doing with these technologies in your everyday work, and for that to feed back into the lectures and what you're getting out of lectures, and also whatever kind of conversation you need to have with me to support you in specific things with the project-based digital content you'd want to originate in your youth work. So the next one will be on best practice. And again, this is more towards the, looking at evidence-based work and theory to practice models of youth work, where we just want to, you look at different things of like, the theory end of youth work to see what is the best sort of engagement with young people in digital media technologies, and what is the furthest thing away from like a tokenistic inclusion of young people in that. So we look at a few things through, like, say, Maslow's hierarchy, and see where certain things can land on that scale, I suppose, and how you can help, this informal education model to become a creative, expressive thing for young people, for young people who are more proficient or experienced with certain sort of computer use, to have a healthy peerage model of them supporting other young people in relation to that. And then mostly for you as the youth worker, the mentor, to be right at the center of that, confidently disseminating any sort of tools, resources to young people in order to help them get the greatest benefit out of these technologies. So we just look along the lines of best practice really with that. The next one, media literacy, critical analysis, and then video editing, where the practical we'll move on to video editing, and we'll incorporate different elements of that. Again, we'll have the software working across the board with that. But the media literacy and critical analysis is again, just to kind of get past any sort of concepts of just simply consuming media and technologies and stuff like that. So again, there should be like a toolkit there, and something which would be very useful and beneficial and interesting for a group of young people, to show them certain clips which will be part of this lecture at the media literacy one, and then just to kind of engage them in the discussion around that, so you can see where people are at in terms of their media literacy and what they understand, or how they can critically engage with media rather than just simply consuming it. So that's closer towards like a media studies, essentially. We'll look at it that way. The next lecture, transmedia, multimedia scalability of projects, where we'll just look at, working across different platforms. So, if we look at the web or going into digital media environments online like that, or social media apps, and how we can use these different digital skills across different sort of different art forms or digital media forms, be it audio, video, into gaming, web-based work, still images, whatever kind of comes up there. We'll just show that there's a real cross-pollination with a lot of these things. And again, mostly to kind of take that illusion of things being really difficult and you having to do things like 10 different times in digital media, rather than just finding quite a neat shorthand to getting, say, image files into a video, or to turn video images into stills and putting them back into a poster, or putting typography next to audio, whatever, and just to see that there's a really interesting and fluid sort of workflow across those different disciplines, mostly because they're all digital files, and a lot of the software would read the same type of files really to that end. After that, then we look at different stages of a production process, which will just, again, it'll be something just to help you as a project leader, as a youth worker, to deliver, the best practice sort of youth work, and just to give you a real structure to whatever you're doing. So mostly it's just to kind of get an idea of how realistic you can be with your deadlines, your expectations of young people, how much would require, giving them the tools that they need to do the work and to be challenged and to build that sort of resilience, and how much is, leaving them in the dark, really. So if you look at it this way, and just in terms of this course, even wherever it looks like I'm about to lose you, well, then that's the measure that I'm going to use it from. From my own experience, I use it the same way as a youth worker, but it's the same measure of being able to keep everybody in a sort of a dynamic flow of learning and applying the skills they're using. So I'd expect this one to be a bit more of a back and forth than the previous lecture series we would have done on gaming, and we just need this to kind of, the sole objective of this is to build your confidence and your resources and your ability to deliver these sorts of tools as best practice to young people with the right toolkits, and to be able to communicate all these ideas and foster those sorts of, critical engagements with media and technology and all these really interesting sort of softwares. And that's the objective of this. So half of that's going to be relying on you not becoming overwhelmed or lost with that. And this is why we really need to get into this module being really specific to what you need to get out of it, or what you really want to do with this type of work in your youth setting. So again, that'll be a back and forth, and I'll be happy to have those discussions, or if we need to have one-to-ones, then that's perfectly fine. We'll arrange times along the way with that, just to see where everyone's at. So the next project-based work, again, realistic deadlines, much like the last one, really, just to kind of make sure that you have we have everyone at the same stage, or there's enough room for, people who are taking an interest in one particular discipline over another, that you have enough resources to provide with them, or to assist them along that sort of path, so they can, elevate it to something more sophisticated. And likewise, that at the other end, people who have an interest but don't have the experience, or are just kind of don't have the aptitude to kind of take it on as quick as others, that there's enough of a skill set and a toolkit there for them to be brought along, really. And then mostly for everyone to kind of share between themselves, being the best approach for this. And then the next, bespoke support for project-based work, which again, just referring to what I talked about earlier, it'll be you defining that, really. It'll be the youth work or led approach speaking to me about what you need and what can be added to that, and then that'll be done. We look at sort of, a practical set of like doing web-based work or social media-based work, and how to upload or access that online. Likewise, with the last two will be audio processing, where we look at how to build and record audio files, how complicated that can get or how simplistic it can be, and all those things leading again into, being used in project work in the youth setting. And then the last lecture will be completing, polishing, and critiquing and showcasing the work. So, this is the whole objective of this, being the benefits that this can give to young people, and the best practice of evidence-based youth work, which a lot of, funders would want to see what's actually being achieved in youth centres by now. I know in the Irish context, that's a bit of a, it's certainly, something which is part and parcel of youth work by now. So, but in the most holistic sense, just for young people to see the fruits of their work and labor and everything that they've learned, kind of being showcased and put out there, can be an enormous joy and something quite defining for a lot of young people, and really help them on their way in terms of if they take a further interest in digital media as, you know, just a hobby or something they might want to have a career in the older they get, or mostly just to kind of move them away from just consuming media and knowing how to look under the bonnet really, and to see how to manipulate media and to change it rather than just being a consumer towards that. So that's pretty much the rundown of that. As I said, it's going to really, you know, rely on your input really, and to just get really specific about what you want and need to do in that. So my broader thinking would be, by lecture 3 and 4, when we look at image manipulation and a poster, that will define a specific path, be it of a program of activities you want to do, or if there's a specific group that you want to kind of speak to, or to bring young people towards the next endeavor. And that could be like to do graphic design, it could be to make a video, it could be to record audio, or to do something, you know, along the lines of music or whatever like that. So everything should be really particular. And my take of it would be, by the time I see your poster that you produced, that I should have a firm idea of what questions to ask in terms of the supports that you might need from me or from a course like this. And then we just assume that the theoretical aspect of each of these lectures is just complementing a better sort of youth work practice, and the practicals can just become more specific to each one of your projects as you see it. But, you know, as I said, we between lectures 3 and 4, we'll have a firm idea of that, really, just to see what that might turn into for the duration. And mostly, as I said, it's for you to consider right now of what type of work you might want to do. That's the only reason I'm kind of laboring on that now. It's not meant to, you know, look like a burden or more work, really, because I know how inundated a lot of the assignments has been so far. So, as I said to you all when I would have met you in person, my sole objective in particular with this is to just give you the toolkits and the things you need to deliver really interesting, dynamic and structured groups in digital media and technology to young people. And that's for you to tell me what you really need to do with that, or where your interest lies within that. Okay, so as I said, it's kind of a shorter introduction one. There's not much more left to do. I'm just going to give you a first objective, really. Again, it's something super basic, and they'll all, you know, anything that the little objectives should be, you know, no longer than 5 or 10 minutes. As I said, I'm going to do it right now myself just to show you. But also, it's just to kind of make sure that you have the same sort of file structures and folder structures as myself, really, so that going forward, you know where to place everything. I don't want to kind of overstate that, really, because it's really important from the outset that you have, you know how to copy files, store them, you know how to kind of keep them, you know, in the right file format, and how to look for it and know that it's safe there, really, so that when it comes to be duplicating or giving it to other people in terms of copying the same project to 4 different computers for different young people or groups of young people to use. We just want to get into best practice of that, really, just to know that you have backup copies and you have everything stored and safe with that. So for this objective, we're going to build a folder structure for relevant projects. We're going to download a video, and then we're going to download a picture. Okay, so as I said, I'm on Mac. I have a video attachment which will go with this lecture for PC. I'd assume this is kind of, you know, straightforward to a lot of people just in terms of where they are putting their folders. Okay, so if I'm just going to hide this screen for 1 minute, and I'm going to just kick this one in instead. So this is a folder structure for this course that we have. Multimedia, designing digital and developing digital content in youth work. So we're looking at lecture 1, and I'm going to put it in here myself. Okay, so we just want to make a new folder, and we're going to name it I'll name it the same thing, so I'll call it sorry, what will I call this? I will call this I will call this Designing Digital Content in Youth Work. Okay, so there we have that. And then within that, we're going to have a different structure. So I'll just build a new folder and I'll say this, I'll call this image. And I'll go back and I'll make a new one. And I'll call this audio. And then we go back and I'll make a new one and I'll call this video. Okay. So what we're really going to do now is go online. And there's a few things. Once we have the folder structure, you can name that. The objective here is that you know the name of that folder and you know exactly where it is. But within that, this is quite important to just know that the files are going to be in each of those particular folders that you need to get. So there's any number of ways to retrieve any number of images, audio files or video files online. There will be toolkits for that and different sort of apps that you can use. I have a listing of that. I think I've left up before, but I'll remind you and bring them back to the front again now. But for the purposes of this, we're just going to download an image, an audio file and a video file and store them in each of those respective locations and make sure they're going there. So if we just go to a Google search, and I'm just going to get an image of a water bear, and there, a water bear, a tardigrade. So we come in here to the image search at Google. So what we see here is just the thumbnail of the images, so they're quite small. And then if we look at the bottom, we see the actual size and the location of that. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go. We can go through the tool setting here and set it to a large image. So again, we see it's just displaying ones that are larger images. So for the purposes of this, I'm just going to get I'll take you. And again, if we look at that, it's just a larger thumbnail. So we have two options here to go to the visit page or just a visit image. And now we've got the full size one. So on a Mac, this would be a right click. On a PC, it would be control click. You just want to save the image as, and that should throw up where we've been looking already, or potentially where you want to save it. Okay, so I'm just going to go to where we had it before, and let's see where we designing digital, and there's the image file there. It's coming down in the format of JPEG. The best thing to do is just to leave it with all the prefix there, or with all the name it actually has there at the moment, because sometimes I notice if you do download it with the name change there, it won't come down properly. So if you just download it first, and then we see if we go up here that it has downloaded, and then we can just again right click or control click to show it in the Finder, and there we are. Okay, so now once we have it in here, we've got the dimensions, we can see it's the right size rather than the thumbnail, and then we're just going to change this to water bear. I just want to name it a different name. So that's the first image-based one. Again, you can be thinking of what you might want instead of a poster, in terms of a poster or something related to the next assignments, or what you might want to do in terms of work. So in terms of your youth work plan for such a thing, or an event you want to promote. So it might be something just as, you know, nominal as I'm doing here, or as, you know, as throwaway, I suppose. So again, there's any number of places to retrieve images from online. Some of them will be copyright or licensed, much the same with music or video. You know, there's a difference with how you want to use them and how you know, that's something in you and your youth work environment. Like there might be something particular around music or a specific film that you want to get under it and talk to people about it, to young people about, in terms of, I don't know, the popular culture that they interact with, or, you know, to kind of critically think about that. But for the purposes of this, I'm just going to look at other images and free sort of Creative Commons images for, you know, audio and video works now. So if we look at Creative Commons license, and that's essentially that, it's a license where, you know, it's an open license and anyone can use it, and we can see how vastly this has grown just in terms of the amount of files online that can be accessed from a Creative Commons license, and how big that has actually become. So we just want to look at different, and there's all sorts of initiatives going on as well around that. So it's quite interesting as well, and certainly something to kind of look through yourself if you're looking for particular things From my end, we're just going to look at we're going to look to see what sort of video or audio might be available in here, and we'll see what we can get. Sorry, just bring back to the same page. Just 1 minute. Sorry, I had one saved here. I'm not losing it now. Let me just see where I'm. Just do a Google search for Creative Commons and music. Music for videos. We can look at it here. And it's giving you a list as well. Like, this is mostly what I have to bring you here. As much as what's stored on here itself, there's like an enormous archive and different sorts of pointing you to different places where there are where there are Creative Commons licenses available. So I just want to look at the sorry about getting disorientated with this here. I had it working perfectly last time. So again, we go into the Creative Commons Mixer section here, and there's any number of examples of samples. Say if people are making their own music and they need to kind of access different sort of different things. And if we look at already, we can see different formats here. So we've MP3 and FLAC. Zip files would just be the folder. FLAC would be like a more uncompressed version than MP3. For the purpose of this, I'm just going to download one of these now. And we'll see save audio as, and much like we said we're going to do last time, I just want to put that in the audio section. So we have that downloaded, just to double check and make sure. Yeah, so our audio is in there and our image is in there. And then we just need to download a video, which will be pretty much the same thing we're doing right now. Let me just go to the videos here. Again, there's any number of videos that can be looked at here. So you can get a lot of stock footage, free stock footage, or different things that would be would give you access to different images. So again, there's a lot of stuff that just goes out under, you know, Creative Commons licenses. And here'd be one, you know, a lot of the stuff will bring you back as far as YouTube or other places as well. So we're just going to look at a way to download this really. So if we look, there might be settings here just for us to download it. If we look in the show more. So if we take I'm just going to show you a different way to get this one down because I'm at to lose my bearings, but I had the window for Creative Commons open and I'm at to losing where it is. So there's a couple of different apps that can be used for getting video downloaded. And we're just going to try one of these. So you just basically copy the URL and bring it into something like KeepVid. There'll be a few. I'll have a list of different ones. Like you can do YouTube to MP3. There's all sorts of different sort of in-app conversion softwares for downloading things. Keep Fit is one that's quite good. There's different levels of it where there's like a paid version of it as well, and then there is a you know, you can use it for free as well. And I'll just see if there's the it's taking some time from it. So yeah, we look here, we get the pro level, will be something you got to be built down. So if we look at just the maximum 720p, this will give us a download of this. And there we go, we see it coming down. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened with the window that I had saved there. But anyway, so now we have the Mars showcase video. Okay, so anyway, we have a video, an image, and an audio file downloaded there and stored in the same place. As I said, that video they can be anything. It's just, you know, look at different ways of if you found something that you wanted to reference online or whatever outside of, you know, commercial or outside of a Creative Commons license. There's any number of you know, different, if you YouTube to MP3, if you wanted an MP3 file, and there's any number of converters that come up for this. Likewise with video, convert and download videos, and there's different ways of doing that. So you can, yeah, there's any number of them, and I will have a list of them elsewhere. What I really wanted to do just there was just to kind of build this file structure and to learn how to have everything saved. So essentially everything that we do in relation to this project and, or sorry, this module will be stored within within this folder. So we'll start out with the images, will be everything related to the poster we do in the next couple of lectures. Likewise with the video thereafter will be in here, and the audio here. And then very quickly we'll see you'll have a build-up of like assets and different images that can be put into different projects, all leading towards having a portfolio by the same way, where essentially this will go in, this folder should go inside another folder, which will be you collecting your projects. So it's just leading towards the best practice of how to start storing your assets and anything that you need for a different project, duplicating them, making sure they're safe so you're not having to look online to retrieve them, knowing that they're not getting put in trash in a computer that you share or you use elsewhere. And that's something, again, in youth work settings, that's kind of, you know, you need to be aware of that, because a lot of stuff does just get trashed and machines get cleaned up, or stuff just gets deleted with, you know, young people using it, whatever, just things can go missing. So it's best to just have a backup of stuff and have it stored properly, you know. So that's pretty much where we are at for this one. Yes, I just wanted to go through that really, and then we'll look at the next lecture is going to be on, if I can get it, the next lecture we'll be looking through the different terminologies and files and file formats with that. So as I said, please feel free to contact me about any of this. As I said, I expect it to be more or less, you know, led by the practical, which is some sort of theoretical base in each lecture, just to kind of reinforce the things around best practice of youth work, and then just to kind of put that sort of to give you the confidence and the wherewithal of taking the skill set that you have from working with young people and now bringing that right towards a real can-do attitude in a youth work environment. You know, even things like that, just things not, as you saw me there, things don't work out exactly as you want them to sometimes. So it's just being aware of that these things happen, and how to kind of have a quite a shorthand response to fixing a lot of things like that, which is really important when you're working with young people in a really sort of dynamic environment like that, because it can be kind of the unstructured side can be quite interesting and help with expression. And just making sure you've got a toolkit to be able to respond to that and allow that sort of interaction with digital medias is the best way to go. So, yeah, that's me. I'll see you in the next lecture. Okay, thanks. Bye.